obviously, and then being able to sell the piece. So what I'm doing now is trying to sell you into these. No, anyway, so this piece was done in 2018 and 2017, the winter of 2017 and 2018, and it's a complete year's worth of work. The design in it is an impromptu design, which I just start weaving the piece. You can see I kind of fool around with ideas, but I don't really get into the design until I get near the center. The art is basically weaving to the center, and then the skill of weaving, you have to copy the first half in a mirror image, which is very difficult. The skill level of that is what's hard, because anybody can do whatever they want over here in the first half, but to be able to copy it is harder. The name of the piece is Thinking Inside the Box. I come from a weaving tradition in northern New Mexico that has been there since around 1638 was the earliest weaving by Spanish weavers using wool. And the Spanish brought the wool to New Mexico. They brought them from Spain, obviously, and they survived in northern New Mexico. They were fluent. I don't know. They took to the area like that and survived. Right now they're a rare breed, the churro wool. Although this is made with merino wool and silk, and so it's a 50-50 blend. Merino is the finest wool in the world, and silk is really fine as well. If you come and touch it, it has a certain feel, and hopefully with age it'll get a patina on it and get really hard. So time will tell what happens.
Would you encourage people to touch it?
Yeah. It'll get greasy hands. You don't have to put a sign that says touch it. You guys can touch it, like that. I think if it had hundreds and hundreds of people over time, it would affect the area. But you can see the box here, and the box really means, in art school, they teach the box, and then they teach you how to think outside the box. So for me, I had to learn the box first before I could learn how to weave outside the box. And when I was growing up, there was no documentation, no videos, no books. Any kind of reference to Spanish weaving was in a Navajo book, and it was probably 2 sentences. And I was pretty ashamed when I grew up because I was supposed to be the 7th generation, and what I saw was the commercial aspect of weaving. Up there, my cousins have shops. We all have shops now, but when I was a kid, there was only a couple of shops that sold weaving, and I started weaving with little squares like this, and I could weave one piece in an hour. And minimum wage at that time was $2.35. And we went to another dealer who was my cousin, and we asked during the summer. I started during the summer because when my parents left for work, I was left alone, and I would watch cartoons until I Love Lucy was over, and then, so I would ride my bike, and it was really boring because if my friends weren't out, it was nothing to do. This was in Los Alamos, so I grew up with technology, and I grew up being Hispanic in technology, and at that time it wasn't, it was very rare to see a Hispanic where I went to school anyway. So I didn't really think about the cultural aspects until I was older, and when I was 10, it was just more for something to do, and I ended up weaving a small piece like that in an hour, like I said, and they were offering me 90 cents a piece. And my dad said, let's just go to a crafts fair and sell them ourselves. And there was a crafts fair, 2-day crafts fair in August, and I had woven 40 pieces. And we took them to this art fair, and I sold 40 pieces in 2 days at $10 an hour, and $10 a piece, which was like, for a 10-year-old, that's pretty good. And so, but when I grew older, I started weaving wider and stuff like that. And I came to eastern New Mexico to work. I got a music scholarship and I didn't take it. It was a full scholarship, and I didn't want to teach, but I took a technical program, and then I went to work in Sandia Labs in Albuquerque for a year, and then I went back to engineering school and got my engineering degree. Then I worked as an engineer until I got my license, and then I quit because I met my wife, and she was graduating with a business degree, and so my dad helped us do a business plan for a weaving business, and Chimayo, where we had family land, was the best place in New Mexico to have a weaving business because the industry is fairly large there. Anyway, so when we first started, I was just using my dad's philosophy, like I said, and then we started researching in museums, and we looked at all the collections we could find in LA, Phoenix, Denver. There's not that many places in the other parts of the United States that has anything to do with the Rio Grande tradition. So this tradition is called the Rio Grande tradition because it spans on the Rio Grande, along the Rio Grande Valley in northern New Mexico, and has been there again since 1630s. Anyway, so this piece is an impromptu piece. There's a symbol in here that's called "Where's Pancho?" So there's, like there's "Where's Waldo?" and you have to find Waldo in this complex. There's a figure in here it's a little figurine, little small thing about this big, and it's in the piece, and I'll tell you where it is. It's right here.
Oh, well, that would be fun for kids to look for.
Yeah, so it's really nice. And it has all kinds of numbers, 6, 9, 12s, 4s. So they aren't, it's not a contrived piece, it's just pretty much just natural. And the process is very spiritual for me because I think it's really important, and I have a gift for this anyway, so I'm really grateful to be able to do this, and I'm grateful to Parker that she was interested in purchasing it, and I'm glad it's in this building. I came down to see it because I didn't know, and I don't know if I'll ever weave a piece this complex again, but because I don't know. But I do have one started. I have about that much. This is a complete year's worth of work. Like I said, over 2 years. But anyway. So, do you have any questions? Oh, the dyes. So the indigo is what I use for the blues, and madder root for the oranges. The other colors like this bright green and the orange, the gold and the really dark red, those are what we call wash fast acid dyes, and they use citric acid to fix the dye to the protein in the fiber. And if this had a cotton wool blend, it would deteriorate because the chemical bond, it's cellulose versus the protein fiber, and it would conflict. And so in the Bible it says not to mix fibers, and I think it was because they deteriorate each other. There's 24 karat gold in this piece. You can look at some of the design has gold in it. And I saw a piece that was commissioned by Maximilian for Napoleon, and it was made in Mexico, and it was made out of just gold and silver. It really inspired me to wonder how to weave with gold thread like that. And I started to do that. So, any questions? That's it.
What about the little crosses?
They're basically 4 directions, although people could take them as the 12 apostles if we want. So there's, this type of banding is what's called a mochi, and it's a narrow banding in stripe pieces like that. The saltillo, this is what they call a saltillo diamond, and it has an angle out and an angle in, as opposed to angle in and then straight out, which a lot of Southwest cliches are like that. This dates back into the early actually in Mexico in the South, it dates back to the 1600s. And it may have come from Spain, or it may have come from Peru, but it's really hard to know where the designs come from. These are little hourglasses, and those are typical in saltillos. It's a style that usually has a border on the outside, and this diamond is usually about a third of the piece. In this piece, it's smaller. So this is kind of a hybrid. There's this kind of stuff right here is more Chimayo style, which is a style that developed in the late 1800s. And I don't know. Did I answer your question? I tend to float off.
Given good care
Yes.
and the right environment, climate-wise,
Mhm.
how long will a rug like this
Well, I saw
endure?
a piece woven for Napoleon in 1865. And the oldest piece that I have in my collection is 1830. It's one of my great grandfathers, and it was given to my parents on their wedding. A lot of times they didn't have value, monetary value, they were trade items, so it was like people's money. If you had blankets to trade, or you trade for food, like wheat or things like that. Did I answer the question? Because I tend to get off and I forget.
Do you have a shop in Chimayo still?
Yes, so we have a shop, it's called Sentinel Traditional Arts. If you want to look online, we have the shop online, it's called chimayoweavers.com. And during COVID, it really helped to be online. We were selling online, but now when we got out of COVID, we're not out of it, but I mean like going through the last one, for some reason people wanted to get out and buy. And last summer, it was crazy. And it's hard to replenish these things. You can't do them overnight. And, so if you have a product that sells quickly, there's not very many weavers that do this anymore. And it's a very difficult occupation because, again, for some reason weavers aren't as valuable as woodworkers. But I'm not saying, but you would definitely definitely worth it.
That looks way harder than what I do, so I'm just gonna go with that right
No,
there.
I mean like, but I'm saying like, hopefully these pieces will give more respect to the tradition, and the more people know about it, it's a very rare compared to Navajo. So the Navajos were not weaving before the Spanish got here. That I have to tell you historically, and so they learned to use the wool from the Pueblo Indian who's cultivating cotton. But the loom that the Navajos used was used by the Pueblo Indians, and the Spanish introduced the wool industry to the Navajos, and they took it, and it's very nomadic because they followed the sheep, so that was part of it. And I tend to space out. It's a drive down here. Okay, any other?
Who's going to carry on the tradition for your family?
So my daughter started about 5 years ago. She got a psychology degree, which is really good. I know. And she took a class on ethnology or cultural ethnology. And she learned, they were studying heritage, and she learned she had a heritage. And so she wanted to come back and just learn the techniques. She didn't really want to do it as a living. And then she found she really liked it, and she was really good. So she's kept on doing it. Right now, she's learning, she's done the dyeing. We prepared looms. She's started to teach this year actually, but she's learning the business end. And that's the thing that people, artists especially, they have a hard time. But my dad taught us the business, and he taught us the value of these things. And I don't think without my dad I would have really been interested. And like I said, I went through engineering. I was an engineer. I could have made a lot more money in engineering, but this was kind of grounded me because I didn't have an identity. I grew up in Los Alamos, like I said, and it took me a lot of time to realize that I could do engineering or go through engineering, whatever. But she's gone through that, and she's liking it so far. So she lives in Albuquerque. She weaves there, and then she comes up 2 days to help us, like with a blog. She does our social media, and they put the new pieces onto the floor, what she calls the floor, which is like where everything goes for sale. Anything else?
How does it differ from Lisa's style?
Okay. So my wife has written a book on this, how to do these, and the techniques anyway. And she has a different thought process. I think she's more pattern oriented, but her overall forms are different. And you know, there's traditional forms that, you know, they all look the same pretty much. They have a diamond in the middle and, or stars and she's kind of combined a lot of styles together and made some what I call hybrids, which are, you know, combination. And hopefully we'll take this into this century. Well, we have taken it into this century. I mean, the kids now have more books to look at. They have the internet to look at. They can look at pieces from India or Afghanistan or anywhere and be inspired by that. There's a weaver in Peru who's one of the world's most famous weavers, and I can look online and see his designs and stuff. And when I was a kid, you couldn't do that. There wasn't anything to teach like that. So she's helped to do that, and her designs, I think, express that as well.
You did. Thank you.
Okay, so that's it. So is he gonna? I want to hear his.
What's that?
I want to hear all the things that you made here, and
Oh, I didn't make much. Just she's the brains and I'm the muscle behind it. So it's mostly what we did. There was a slew of us that worked on this. You know, there were so many times that, you know, this a project would, you know, you start it and then there's a process where it comes to a standstill at one point. You know, and Megan would call me and be like, "Hey, can you come over and do this?" I'm like, "I can't. I'm on another job." So somebody else would come in and do a part of it. And it was a team effort between, I don't know, multiple carpenters and tile guys. I mean, well, 2 of them are out there right now. So, and what was really cool about this house is that I grew up, Dallin Sanders was my grandfather's best friend. And so I grew up playing here. So it was cool to be back here and do that. So, because my dad, my granddad, and Dallin worked at Eastern forever. You know, my granddad ran what they call a physical plant now. But yeah, Gib Davis was my granddad, and he ran the maintenance for Eastern
I
forever.
know his name. I've
You do?
heard his name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he owned the skating rink here, so
Yeah.
So it was cool to be from here, get to do something new with this, and revive it. So I enjoyed the heck out of it. So wish I could have done more, but like I said, you know, you get busy and there's just times where you fit in and where you don't. I got to do most of the casitas, so she called me in on the cabinets over here and got to do that.
We love the casita, don't we?
Yeah, the casita's really cool.
Oh,
So I like it too.
It's too
It
cool.
started out so ugly.
It did. It was touch and go for a while, but it turned out awesome. So,
It's been touch and go for a few times, I think. But
right.
you know, I think sometimes when you work, and this whole story about this guy who goes through a church or cathedral, and he asks God, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm sawing logs." And what are you doing? You're carving stone. What am I doing? And he comes to another one and he says, "I'm building a cathedral." And I'm not going to pretend this is a cathedral. It's a little jewel.
It's a little.
But it's a place where people will come and everything will be beautiful. And they can talk with each other and enjoy it and look at the beautiful creations that are here. And you know, that's worth the work.
No, it's great. Like I said, there's plenty of my friends and Kurt, you know, they did all the landscape. And these guys
Outside.
did. It's awesome, and yeah,
Beautiful.
it's a good combo of all of us. So it was a joy to work on.
I mean, I never thought I'd look out there and see it looking pretty.
You saw it before. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it made me sad because back when Dallin lived here, there were just huge trees that were just beautiful, and it was awesome.
There was
yeah.
along the back, that cement trough used to pipe the water out of the well and flood the yard.
better, yeah.
Yep, I've been here when he was doing that.
Yep. Long time ago.
But people need spaces that are nourishing to them aesthetically, and where they can see beauty and genius and craftsmanship.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have here,
The craftsmanship is just outstanding.
and artistry.
Yeah. Yep, bunch of artists.
Well, I just looking at that rug and him talking about it, I would be a raving drunk. Trying to finish that. I'd drink way too much. It'd probably make me go insane. That's a lot of work.
I didn't tell you about that part.
That's the part I'll see. Me and the wife split for a little bit. But that's okay.
But you know it's there.
It's pretty neat. I wanted to see it when I was, well, I hope maybe someday I'd come back, but.
And you've given everybody carte blanche to touch it.
Yeah.
If I went up to it, I'm
You don't
like,
have to
"Hey,
tell
me
her
too,
to
touch it."
Sorry, they won't let you.
If she
Which
doesn't
part
want
is that one?
to touch, anybody touching, it's her, she has the call. I just touched it, so. Barbecue up there, so.
Some taco grease.
Barbecue.